Welcome. Manny Shalaby and I are on today. We co-teach in the Ocean of Sound, and we have a beautiful guest with us, Leonor Murciano Luna. We're very excited for this interview. Manny, can you tell us why you were the one that said, let's interview Leonor? What inspired you to have her on today?
Yes, welcome everyone and welcome Noura. I'll call you by the spiritual name I know you of.
Absolutely.
We met recently in South Florida Sufi School. Of course, we knew each other from before, but this time Noura was performing her sound healing, and it really moved everyone there in a beautiful, deep way. And for me, because I'm teaching the Ocean of Sound with you, Mastura, it inspired me to look at the vowels, because like for me, some of the sounds that she used was related to the vowels in Arabic and in every language. So I was looking at their name in Arabic and what they meant, and found that what she said is almost in harmony with that. So it was amazing discovery, and I wanted to, get to know more about Nora's work and, share also our reflections on it together. So I want to start by welcoming Nora again and thank you for coming. And I want to also ask you, like, what ignited your interest in sound and its effect and its healing?
Wow, what ignited? Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, I'm very honored. And since I was very, very young, I loved sound. And as a child, I used to play various instruments and was kind of like thrown into the musical world and learned, music and theory and piano and singing and guitar. And then it's like when I hit 15, there was like a lot going on and my life changed dramatically. But when I was that young, I was really like, that was my whole world, right? And I loved it. And then I kind of left it behind, like one of these things that, and I dove into, psychology, and I was always about learning, healing, healing through different ways, like psychological, emotional, and I went into more of the physical and kind of like where all of these things meet. And then about, I think it was around like 2017 or so, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, it started coming back around. I mean, I always had like the drum and the piano and they were there, in the background. But all of a sudden it kind of like, I did, so I know both of you know, but for your listeners, so my work in the last 25 years as a healer has been working with women and, healing on all these levels that I just mentioned, but through really the connection with our essence, with our soul, right? Through the spiritual connection where we are disconnected, and helping, supporting women in women's health, fertility, and different, aspects of just feeling good on all levels. And I realized that as I'm working and doing, the energy healing and spiritual healing and the acupuncture, etc., a lot of all of the sound was just starting to come through. And I was like, okay, and I was really paying attention and listening. And then I started to use sound and, work just with sounds, just with toning. And then I started, and then I started to do more drumming, and I came across the book, this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, When the Drummers Were Women, When the Drummers Were Women by Lane Redman, which talks about in history how the drum and the sound of the drum is connected to the womb, to the essence of creation, to the great mother, how it's a portal, right? And how it's been used thousands and thousands of years, like it was used in all of these, mythologies and Greek mythology and Egyptians. You see women holding the drum. anyway, and so that one thing led to the other, and it became a really big part of my healing practice to work with the drum, work with sound, and help and support women to bring through their voice, because for women, that's been part of, the collective healing that we all need, because our voice on many levels have been shut down for thousands of years. And so, when I started to use this in practice, first with myself, right? Because I've always loved singing. I had visions that I was going to be a singer when I grew up, when I was little. But, now, in the last 5 years, it's like the music came back, but in a different way, not in a performative way, which is how, most of us that, learn piano and learn, all of these musical things, are exposed to it. More in a way of like, everybody can sing, the birds are singing every day. It's not about this competition. It's about an expression, and opening that up. And so then, of course, the vowels and the energy systems and the chakras and the wombs and, all of that, there's this correlation, which is very exciting to hear you say, oh, you brought it into your own system, with the Arabic letters, which now I'm like, oh yeah, I want to know more about that. Because, I feel that's part of my work. It's like really integrating all of these different systems and, which bring healing, which brings growth, which brings the evolution of our being, so that we can live more in union with our divine, self, really, in this physical body, right?
Yeah.
So I can go on and on. So please stop me.
I just want to note that one of the things that I love that you're saying is, here you had this childhood that was all about music. Yeah. And then you thought you were going to be a singer, you aspired to be a singer, put that on hold, went this other direction. And now I know you've been doing for a long time work with the feminine and fertility and healing for women. Now they've come together. And that for me is just like, flashing neon. Nothing in your life is wasted. Exactly. Everything comes back together to serve, to equip you to serve the purpose you're here to serve. So that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And I couldn't have foreseen that. I couldn't have foreseen that, and that blows my mind too. And now, in the last 4 years, my passion is really to help women, not just to help support in the healing, but also to, teach how to use all these tools, right? Which I kind of call the feminine healing arts, right? Because they were used back when. And so in many ways, it's really, in a way, it's really in our DNA, because our ancient mothers and in our mother line, they used to use this for healing. The drum, the circles, the organic sounding. And, I know that all of us here, we like to understand, we have this beautiful developed intellect and we can bring it. But at the end of the day, it's really, the healing comes from really diving deep, letting go of what we know, what we think we know. It's not prescriptive, right? It's just this organic sounding and being and expressing that essence, expressing our light, expressing, our truth. So
Really
yeah, and I love that. I love teaching that,
Beautiful, because the drum is essential. You just made me realize that it's in every culture, in the history, it's the first instrument. And they say it all started where people to express themselves intuitively, whether they are happy or sad, they will knock, or and then they started to invent the drum as the first instrument. And so you mainly use only the drum or some other?
I mainly use the drum, the frame drum, which is here's one that I use to help, when I teach others how to, engage, because the drum is it's like foundational. right? And of course, you know, as this creative, you know, I love music, I love sound. So I sometimes, I mean, I have the sounding bowls that I have, you know, I mean, I have a lot of different instruments. I even have a steel drum that's very, you know, kind of etheric and it's very beautiful. But I feel that the drum is really like, you know, when I first played the frame drum, I mean, the visions that were coming, like I can tune in, like all of a sudden I could see like my ancestry and my ancestors, you know, like around the fire. It was pretty wild, you know, around, you know, in these groups of women playing the drum. And so it just brought me to tears. And it was like, oh, it's like a portal, you know, it's like you're tapping into this dimension and it's there. It's really there. It's not like you don't even have to imagine it. It's like it takes you there. There's something very primordial that the drum activates within us. And it's also our heartbeat, right? So it's the first sound that we hear, you know, in the womb as, you know, as incarnate beings, you know, in the womb. It's the first sound. So there's something very soothing also and very, you know, it's like it allows us to really rest and also kind of just lean into that. So yeah, and there's been a lot of studies which you know, I'm sure you both know because you do all the sound work, but you know, about sound alone and drumming and our health, like it affects all aspects of our health, right? The emotional body, the physical body, the spiritual body, and our thought patterns. So it's affecting all dimensions of our being, which is pretty powerful. I mean, and that's true for obviously for sound as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful because like these days there is so much stimulus and
Yes.
so many, you know, like even the radio waves and the different things,
Noise.
whatever waves that are being, you know, satellite waves and
Yeah.
everything that are going through the air that take us out of our natural rhythm and keep us from being able to
Exactly.
rest. So I can see how that would be really transporting to just shut all that out, be with the rhythm of the drum and get back to your natural state.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like an entrainment in a way, and it allows your whole body to start to regulate, you know, your whole nervous system. Uh, yeah, it's very powerful that way. And for women, you know, I've seen a lot of women also, you know, as they're going through these transitions, or even when they're kind of dysregulated in their cycles, you know, or going into menopause, you know, it's like starting to use the drum and their sound, you know, as Amani, you heard the sounds that I use for the three wombs, and you know, we can do some of that after, but using the sound to start to kind of come back, because we do live in this really stimulated, you know, most people are out of rhythm and that affects our physical health and our cycles and our emotions, everything. Yeah. So it's a kind
Yeah.
of bringing that back into entrainment, you know, our nervous system.
You know, no wonder that also the Sufis, a lot of Sufi
Yeah.
Turk, they use the drum in their practice of remembrance or dhikr, what we call it,
Exactly.
remember the divine, you know. So it's really, you can feel the effect. And I remember even with my Sufi friends, sometimes we would randomly start to play drums together. And I'm not like a drum player or anything, but it was just naturally as you feel in the circle and as you entered into the rhythm with your own tune. And this really have a very powerful effect. And it's one way to also for young people to connect it to spirituality. So have you worked with young people before?
Yeah, and they're all, you know, very drawn to sound and music,
Yeah.
right? And it's almost like if you take that and you distill it. I mean, you know, here in Florida and really all around, they're doing, you know, these sound baths and these, you know, and they're doing it with the yoga and, you know, and it's like another way to again regulate, and it's very, very popular. So I've worked, you know, I've done a lot of different like groups I usually do it in accordance with the moon and the dark moon and the new moon, which by today is a dark moon, actually. So the day right before the new moon, at least for this recording. But yeah, it's a good way. Like you said, it's a really amazing entry point because they can feel it right away and they don't have to, subscribe to any particular belief system or, they don't have to, yeah, I agree with you. It's very powerful that way.
As you're saying that, I can just see this as something that would be so powerful for grandmothers, mothers, and daughters to do together on a regular basis, just for the health. You mentioned, turning 15. I have a great niece who's going to be 15 on Monday, and I'm freaking out about it actually because, of just of all the different directions life can take around that age, right? And when you love someone and you care about them, you want to you want to help them to preserve their connection with themselves and not lose themselves as so many of us do. And we take that painful journey, and yes, it's all for purpose, and
I protect them.
all has purpose and meaning.
And it can bring harmony between the three of generations.
Exactly, because it's, as you know from sound, and this is you guys' territory as well. Like, it'll bring us into a coherent field, right? So even if we are just using our voice, and sometimes in our circles we'll just use voice, because that in itself is really powerful. But the drum, it's almost like an anchor, of rhythm. And it brings us all into a coherent field. It's like when women are together, or live together, and then they start bleeding at the same time. It's like they're coming into rhythm. So that can happen really fast when we do, these sound circles. And it kind of brings, it's like a creation of an alignment of harmony, because it's like that aspect of harmony already lives in your body, and it gets disrupted, like you were saying, Mr., with all of the different stimulation and our thoughts, and we're, out there all the time. So we're not, we don't go in a lot. I mean, maybe we do, but the general public, if you're not doing, daily practices, you're kind of pulled out and scattered in so many ways. So,
Mastura is not, that's exactly what I actually did with my children when they were teens, them and their friends. We will do that zikr circle and drumming circle, and randomly. We didn't have even enough drums, but they would use anything they can drum on. And it's really lovely. And I think our audience now are probably very curious and very excited to hear some of your
and I wanted to say that you don't have to like go out and get a drum, like just humming, studies show that just humming is so powerful to regulate your nervous system, your emotions. When we feel kind of like a little, stressed, which, who isn't nowadays, just brings you back into your center, into your core, into more alignment with that divine flow within. And that's itself is powerful, Yeah. And I just wanted to say with the humming, before I go into this, that the other day, a patient of mine brought her child. She's like a 1-year-old, and I just carried her. I have 3 adult girls, so it's been a minute. They're all in their 20s. But the minute I carried her, and she was kind of like, just falling asleep a little, rested on my shoulder, and I just automatically started humming. And then I remembered, it's like, oh yeah, I used to do this with my kids. But it was so organic, and it was like, and just the sound like was bringing her into this like very peaceful, coherent field. It was pretty amazing, and it reminded me of how we as human beings, like, I believe like everybody can sing, right? It's not about hitting a note or, making it sound a certain way. This is what we've, been indoctrinated with. It's just about sounding. It's about, wailing if we feel sad or depressed. It's about expressing with sound, like all of nature does. and if we kind of bring it into that mindset, it's very liberating, for all of us. So I'll do a little bit of I'll do a medicine song, what I call a medicine song, which is, using the drum. I'm gonna move back a little bit. And some sounds, like just organic sound, because if you use words, it brings you more into your, intellectual mind, and it kind of brings you away from that more primordial essence that we're trying to like just tune into. And I'll do a little medicine song, which is, it's just for us to connect with our heart, with our womb, and just feel the sound moving through. And if you feel like you want to sound with me, then more power to you. That's what it's about. And everybody can do this. Everybody can learn to do this for themselves and for others. There we go. It's a little medicine song with added the quality of Nura, of light at the end, and I often do some of the qualities as well and weave them in as they kind of organically come through, which is something that you can also, which is very effective, that you can also practice. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I feel transported.
Really
Yeah, it's
amazing.
fast.
Yeah.
And one thing, when you say that, it reminds me that, a lot of the biggest issues I have that people tell me, it's like, well, I sit down and meditate and, it's like I'm just bombarded, with problem solving and thoughts and agendas and lists and like, again, because we live in that world, right? And we're so constantly so using sound and voice, and as Sufis, I know that we use the out weird, and we're used to using the qualities and all of that. But then just kind of organically, just see what wants to come out, and it brings you right into that, divine dimension within us, and of course outside of us. It brings you right into that really holy place. And then you can, be nourished from that, receive
This
them.
really have a powerful effect. It's beautiful because it does help people to calm and focus and then transport, as Mastura said.
Yeah.
And, so I'm just curious, like, how long usually the drumming circle or healing session takes?
Yeah.
Or
So when I work individually with people, it might, it's 60 to 90 minutes because it's like a healing, and we go into somatically what you're feeling, but then, as they're kind of moving into and transforming, we're using sound. So it could be 60 to 90 minutes. And when I incorporate it in groups, again, it's like 60 to 90 minutes when we're doing some group work.
it can
But
go
I
very
mean,
deep, I imagine,
you
only
can
by
go
a
10
short
minutes. You saw that was
demonstration.
3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. 3 or 4 minutes. And that's a medicine song. And you can do that for everything. You can do that in the morning and just like, okay, like what's here? What am I feeling? You can do that for yourself, for others. It's a way to really anchor peace. And I'm talking about really deep, like when we're working with trauma and, something where, you're hitting that wall over and over and we want to, heal deeper. But yeah, it's really effective. Just a few minutes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Nora, I want to ask a question because I know you've got a lot of credentials. You are one of the most accomplished uh, women that I know, and I know that you've been, a
Oh,
single mom for. This is one of the things I've always, witnessed you and marveled at. You've been a single mom. You've written several books. You've got this. You've got the. You're an acupuncturist, correct?
yeah, acupuncture precision. Yeah.
And can you tell us about your credentials? And then I'm curious to know how this merges with some of of that work that you do. The
Right.
like we're
Well,
calling acupuncture more traditional work.
yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
it's all relative, right?
Right. So to me, how does it merge?
Can
I
you
mean,
say your credentials first, just so that
all I
for
do.
people who don't know you? Or just a
My
few, just a few.
credentials. Just a few. Well, I'm an acupuncture physician in the state of Florida, and I have a PhD in quantum integrative medicine, which is really, to me, it's like really understanding the quantum language to spirituality, because that's how I see it. It's like it's really all the same thing. It's just
Hmm.
that you can speak it, in terms of like physical health, right? And what's happening in the biochemistry. And you can speak it according to like energy and quantum physics. Not that I'm that great at that, but and then you can speak it in terms of Chinese medicine and what's happening with the elements and all. So they're all different languages for this thing we call healing and health and our evolution of how we're growing, physically, emotionally, and at the end of the day, we want to feel good. We want to like just feel good. Period. It's really simple, right? We want to feel good. We want to do good. We want to, be happy, right? Which is, not always that easy, but we want to spread that. And, like I said, lately I work a lot with healers. To me, it's about like understanding healing on these different levels, right? The physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and how they all integrate to create real tangible differences. It's like, okay, how do I heal from depression? How do I heal from anxiety? Like this is real things. It's not just, like a spiritual bypass, right? And it's physical because I feel like even the physical body is whatever's happening physically in our body is a reflection of what's happening in our spirit, in our essence, in our deeper consciousness.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a crisis so that we can connect with where we are needing the love, where we're needing to come out of separation and come into union with our self, with our true self. But it's not about just the true self. It's really like all the feminine work is really about that divine coming into union with the divine dimension in this physicality, right? In our physical bodies, opening up the sensing, the feelings, the heart, and recognizing that sacredness, that holiness is in every single physical aspect of creation, including ourselves, the animals, the trees, everything. So, so I use sound because it's just at this point so organic. Like I haven't done a straight acupuncture session for like probably 12 years now. Because of course, I also, did all the Sufi work, and before that I did a lot of the Vedic and yogi and the chakras, and really working with that system, and then the Sufi system, and then the Chinese and the Taoist system, so of energy work, so all these different systems, but um, in a way I bring them all together. And that's
Right,
what,
right.
that's what I teach, because there's an essence at the core of all of those systems. There's an essence of light that I refer to as the feminine, as the great mother. And at the core, it's about connecting to that, you know?
About the womb of mercy and
Yeah.
compassion, which
Yes.
in Arabic is the Rahim, and it comes from
Yeah.
the divine name Ar-Rahman, the most
Right.
gracious, compassionate. So uh, I am really interested, maybe curious, because our world is going through trauma right now, and a lot of communities are traumatized with
Yes.
wars and other problems. And I wonder if you work it also, everything originally is a trauma, right? That it causes people
Yeah.
depression or anxiety. So I am curious to hear, like, if you would like to share, you don't need to share names, but some of inspiring stories of people who really walked through their trauma with the sound healing,
Yeah.
uh, that can inspire others to try it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I mainly work with women, and I think collectively as women, what I see a lot is, a lot of the trauma that turns into anxiety or turns into, this kind of like fear of expressing ourselves, fear of even, saying things out loud because, they're not going to like us, they're going to exclude us. And it's really a fear, it's a terror that we carry within, our DNA. And that's understandable given the collective history of women and what our ancestors have, gone through. We carry that in our blood until it's healed. And I think there's a lot of us now here that are kind of wanting to heal that for the lineage, whether we identify as healers or not. There's, women come to me that don't identify as healers that are like, oh yeah, I don't want to live like, how the whole family has been. Like they feel completely different, right? And they know there's more, and they're willing to like break that cycle of trauma. So, and one thing that I did for years was work with fertility, because I feel like fertility, the way that I look at fertility and women that have challenges with fertility, and is that it's almost like you're gonna bring in, you're gonna give birth to the next generation, and yet you can't. And yet there's something that needs to happen for your body to come into, kind of right relationship for that, for you to be able to give birth. And, it goes back to what I was saying, like any of these physical conditions, a lot of it is for our own growth, right? They're like crises that happen so that we can actually grow through them. And so most of the women, would do very deep work that they might have not ever been exposed to, like really looking at the places where they hate themselves, or where they've indoctrinated, this idea of what it is to be a woman that
Right.
is so hidden that they didn't even know they were carrying it, because they were thought, oh yeah, this is what everybody, thinks or does, or etc. And so wherever there was that self-hatred, you know, um, against our bodies, that's a big issue, if we don't look a certain way, and so,
Right.
starvation, all of those things. So, and then when they would walk through that, sometimes it would take, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, but they would walk through, enough, and then their bodies would be able to conceive. It's pretty amazing. I did that for over 20 years, and it would never stops to really astound me of how, how these women that think they're never, and physiologically, there's nothing really wrong. It's like a lot of them really end up being diagnosed with like unexplained infertility, which, is unexplained. But, I think that it's all of these, psychological, spiritual imbalances within us that affect us. So those are, those are pretty fascinating, things to see in a woman's body. And people with, issues with menopause or with their periods or, again, with anxiety. I think 90% of people have anxiety in general, maybe 95. And I read this study that said that this was a few years ago for my last book, that 45% of Americans are on some kind of medication to alter, and to deal with their anxiety. 45%. So it's probably like 85 by now for anxiety, anxiety or depression, which are two sides of the same coin. So,
Which is an indication of how far out of rhythm we are from our natural selves. And as you're talking about, the things that women struggle with when it comes to our ability to give birth to the next generation, there's a lot physiologically that is aligning there. And there are so many messages from the culture and from the world, as well as the ancestral stuff, that really, we might not even recognize what we're carrying and what we have embedded into our consciousness about what it means to be feminine, that what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother, what it means to give birth. And, it's no wonder, because when it doesn't align with your core truth of what inside your being, like that core rhythm, and all these other things are saying, oh no, but this is real and this is real and this is real. But your core rhythm is saying, no, this. So to use that sound, as you said, to help people to reconnect with that core rhythm can bring it all back into where your truth lies, which can just open up the pathway.
And sound is vibration, right? And so when we're doing the different, different locations, there's 3 wombs, there's 7 chakras, and there's, many others, but I mainly work with the 3 wombs because they're just so simple and so powerful. You can do sounds, and it's almost like, if you think of our body as like 70% water, from 60 to 75, depending on who you talk to. And it's like the water vibrates. Have you ever seen the water in a singing bowl, that experiment they have on YouTube? And then it's like, because it's moving the water, so sound will move whatever stagnation, if I may speak in now in terms of, Chinese medicine, or, blockage, trauma, again, whatever language you want to use, that has been stored there in our nervous system in these different portals, energy centers. And when we direct and we do specific sounds for these places, it's like we don't have to physically figure out the trauma. We just kind of tune in, sound, and feel. Just give it a space for those feelings, which is like energy that's been blocked in our nervous system because we've shut down out of safety and survival most of the time. And the sound just transforms. It's like it moves it out. That's why movement and dancing and, is also so powerful, so, and usually after it moves, you'll get the epiphany, you'll understand. So it's a little bit different, when we're working in this way, because you're kind of like, you can dive in. It's not about figuring it out, right? Like you can, do the therapy, and that's helpful for certain things. but then you have to actually alchemize it, metabolize it, transform it in here, in your body, in the energy field. That is what some might call the nervous system, or I don't think it's just the nervous system. I think there's these whole other portals, in our chakras
Hmm.
and energy centers. And yeah, and it'll just transform. It's just like sitting in a vibrational, you know, um, I don't know. That happens sometimes in a car, right? When you're driving for hours and then all this stuff starts to move. I don't know if that happens to anybody
That,
else.
yes,
Oh,
that's why I
yes.
love driving
I think
because
that's part of the vibration. Like I've always
sometimes
thought
you're
that. Yeah.
alone and you're just the rhythm.
Right. And you get all these
Yeah,
epiphanies and you're
getting
like,
rhythm.
wow.
Yes, yes. You have
Yeah.
a moment to get
Yeah.
out of your
Yeah.
doing things.
You're in your own field, and then you're being
You're in the
kind of
cocoon.
shaken up a bit. So this
Yeah.
is a nice kind of a little bit more precise way to do it than a 3 to 4 hour drive.
Right.
Yeah.
But
And
A little more practical.
as you were talking about infertility, depression, and anxiety, they all related. I wonder also, and you can talk about that, it is affecting the relationship between, men and women. Like, because I meet a lot of single people, for example, these days that uh, they can't find a relationship that is satisfying. So
Yeah.
that also has to do with some probably trauma.
Well, yeah, I mean, how we relate to other, and if we look at it from a spiritual perspective, the other is a reflection, right? And so it's very easy to project on the other, if we haven't worked through, if another person, whether it's a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, or a friend, if they're triggering something within us, we don't have the foresight to say, okay, hold on, I'm being triggered here. Let me work through this, right? And have tools, right? Because I think if we don't have tools, this is the main important thing. It's not about going to have work done all your life. It's like, okay, these things are going to arise organically. This is how we grow. Feel uncomfortable or feel sad or grief or whatever, all of these different feelings, that's normal, rather than shutting them down. And then have tools to move it, have tools to reflect and be able to grow. But what happens a lot in relationships, especially very close relationships that we feel kind of safe with, is we then project, and there's this, what's his, what's mine, I don't know, and make the other person wrong, because it's easier than having to really deal with those feelings and become responsible for ourselves and our own happiness. So a lot of us might still be carrying some of this internalized beliefs around, it's their job to make you happy, or, and all of this thing that a lot of times is unconscious. We don't even know.
right.
And for women, like a lot of the patriarchy, it might look like we're very free in the Western world, but we carry all that patriarchy values, cultural values, and it's all been internalized, right? And sometimes we
Yes.
don't even know that it's affecting us, and then we feel, oh, all this unworthiness, or we like feel all this fear. Like my big thing was always fear and terror, of expressing like this, like feeling of I'm gonna die if I, express. And that's very common amongst women, again, because in our DNA we're carrying that from our ancestors. They've died tragically, and there's a way to also heal that. I do a lot of the work with the ancestral mother line so we can heal, all of that, and be the face of our ancestors, and come in, with our light. But it's powerful, and it's strong, and we don't know, a lot of times we don't have the tools to handle that.
Right. I have to ask before we end this interview, can you say more about the three wombs?
Yes. Okay.
That some of
Um,
Maybe a
some
little
people are saying, wait a minute,
demonstration
I
will
thought
be
I
good
only had
too.
one.
So we're talking about three energetic wombs, not necessarily physical. However, I'm glad you said that, because we if we talk about it in terms of, okay, so in Chinese medicine they might call it the Dantian, right? And so we know we have three centers, and I know that in like Western um, neurology now they're talking about the three brains, right? We have our normal brain, we have our heart. The heart has a brain, and it's functions on its own, and it does all of that, and then we have the gut brain, right? So we can relate it to those physiological systems. And so the three wombs are kind of like the consciousness, and it's also an aspect of the chakras, right? The seven chakras, which we won't go into today, but everybody's sort of familiar with the chakras. So the three wombs, we have our sacral womb is the lower womb. Then we have our heart womb, and then we have our brain womb, or head womb, sorry. So I'll start from the top down because it's easier. The head womb is where we, have, if you just think of the different glands in that area, and we have our brain and our thought patterns, and it's our intellectual capacity, even though it's not just in our head, but it's the way that we create neural pathways, and our beliefs are kind of like in this area, even though they're in our whole body. But it's our thinking, right? If you think of it in intellectual, then we have our heart space, right, which is this whole space here, and also, I think it covers a little bit of our solar plexus, and these are not black and white. We just have to divide them in order to be able to speak about these, etheric concepts. But our heart space is our felt experience, right? And it's our emotional body, but it's also kind of like, in like this, in the Sufi tradition, how we can turn, how the heart turns, and then it witnesses Allah, the divine, right? So it has the ability to experience ourselves as separate beings in the world, but it also has the ability to witness ourselves as divine beings, right? And as one. So it has that ability, and as the Sufis say, depending on where you're witnessing from, right? And so that's all in the heart. What's important about that, obviously, to connect with the divine aspect, but it's also really important to feel, because most of us have shut down, whether it's due to trauma or, we shut down the uncomfortable feelings. And when we shut down the uncomfortable feelings from the heart, from our being human, like, yes, there's grief, and there's sadness, and there's fear, and there's terror. Like this whole range of uncomfortable emotions is a reality in this plane. When we shut that down, it also shuts down our ability to feel the good things, the pleasant, the states of ecstatic, joy and pleasure and, bliss, right? So if we shut down, it's not like, oh, we're going to shut this down, we're just going to feel this. That doesn't really happen. That's not really a reality. That's what we think is happening. And then we have our sacral womb. If you kind of move down, and our sacral womb is connected to the essence. So it's like it starts from the heart, but then it connects to the womb of creation. It connects to the divine. It connects to Allah, to whatever word, the Great Mother. It's like it's just like we can just lean into that and be in that space. And for women, physiology is a little different than the men. And, we have, a lot of us have physical wombs where we can continue to bring through and give birth to the next generation. But even if we're not doing that physically, we're still bringing through that compassion, that rahmah, that essence, right, as human beings. And we all do that. And then we do it through the heart by feeling, and we do it through our thoughts, through the creative thoughts. Once we break down, the old neural pathways that we're used to, right, are kind of, one of my mentors calls it the habituated pathways of trauma that we've created. So we're breaking through those habituated patterns, and then when we are able to, and one of the things that sound does, and you can use different sounds for each one, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute if you want, because then your listeners can play with this, is that when you're able to kind of connect all the way through into that divine realm through your sacral womb, whether it's a male or a female, because we all have that energetic womb, then as that's moving through you, it's like, when it moves into your head, it's like you get the epiphanies, you get the creative thoughts, rather than that, cycle of, fears and, thoughts that just go on and on and on that are not creative, right? So it's almost like connecting to that divine, anchoring in that feminine essence, which is what I call it, allows you to, it just changes your whole, not just energetic, but also your physiology, right? It changes everything. Your biochemistry changes, your emotional experience changes, because you can feel the pain, but it's almost like you're anchored in the love, right? It's like you can feel the grief, but there's something else that you can access, when you need it. And we all need it. We all need it. We all need it. We don't, it's hard to feel grief or fear if we're not anchored in the greater love, if there's not a level of safety, which is another big piece for women, is about creating that safety in our bodies and breaking through all of the trauma experiences of the fear and the terror. I know that one well. That's been my life, personal journey. Yeah.
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 I'm in touch with that emotion as well.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we'll do this really quick because I know that we're running out of time. So the three wombs, and I can share a diagram with you for your audience if that will help. I'll send that through for you after. And everybody can do this with me if they want. We're going to put our hands, right hand over, left hand over the right hand. Doesn't really matter, whatever feels right. Right below our umbilicus, our belly button. And just right on our belly, right on our lower belly. And just, let's just take a deep breath there. And we're going to just breathe, and we're going to do a sound. And the sound that we're going to use is the ooh sound. And it could be any tone. It's best to do as low of a tone as possible. So ooh versus ooh, so going lower, right? And so we're going to go up. We're going to go up in sound as well as we do the other one. So right now, let's go put our hands on our belly. And just focus for a second with your breath. And then as you're doing the sound, we're just going to kind of like just feel what's happening in that whole pelvic region, right? And this intelligence that's there in this lower womb. And we're going to do three of these sounds. You can do 3, 6, 9, 12, any factor of 3. Is really powerful. Beautiful. And then just take another breath just to kind of integrate that. Just notice what you're feeling in your body. There's no right, there's no wrong. Just allowing and becoming present with whatever's here. And then bringing our hands to our heart space, right here in our heart, center of our heart chakra. And now we're going to use the ah sound, which we're very familiar with. And we're going to sound that into our heart, and we're just going to notice, like without letting go of any expectation. And we'll do that 3 times. Just breathing and allowing, breathing, and just noticing, and just being with the silence. And bringing our hands up to our head womb. You can even bring it, putting our hands on the side of our head, or we can bring our hands right in front of our eyes, covering our third eye with our pinkies, and covering our eyes, which is really, really powerful, because we're also activating the pineal gland. And then we're going to do the E sound as high as you feel comfortable with. So this is not about straining or pushing. So just whatever tone feels comfortable to you, and play around with it. And this activates the pineal gland, pituitary gland, hypothalamus. And just coming into silence. And then just tuning in to your whole body energy field with your breath. Yeah. And one last thing that I'll say about that is that as you're doing these, it's the ooh, the lower, the ah, and the e. You can, they're also activating the glands, right? The pineal gland, the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the heart. You're activating the thyroid and the thymus gland, and even the adrenals, and then the lower is activating the ovaries, and then the root gland as well. And it's bringing, again, that alignment, right? It's like bringing it into harmony, because your body innately knows how to heal. Your body knows how to come into alignment. It's like when we cut ourselves, the cells know what to do. You know, there's this innate intelligence in your system. So we're activating that. and then we can, of course, always add an intention because we're so powerful and our mind is so powerful. We can add an intention if we're going through something, an intention of, creating health in my physical body, healing my immune system, healing my thyroid, healing my anxiety, healing my relationship, etc. And then we can do these 3 womb activation and activate this harmony within us and shift our biochemistry. It's like that simple. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's so very powerful.
Thank you.
Even more powerful when you do it in person and when you are in a group. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. But, more importantly, it's about us doing it, at home. It's a tool,
Okay.
because I'm really big on, teaching people how to fish. So I don't know how to fish, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, because, to come into that sovereignty and of course, we all need support when we need support, but it's a maintenance tool, and we are needing it more and more these days. We're needing it because there's a crisis. There's a big crisis in our world, and we're all individually responsible for ourselves, and then to, as we're healing ourselves, as we're coming into greater and greater love, and from that space, then how to, we're transmitting that, we become that anchor, on the planet, and transmit that even in, just going to the supermarket, it's like it's part of what our spirit is transmitting. So yeah, it's important that we do it for ourselves first.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That is the part that inspired me in your demonstration, that the ah sound is like, we call it in Arabic al-fatha, opening.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you can see it's opening. And then the sacral one, the oo sound, is, we call it dhamma, which is like an embrace or a unifying. Yeah, and the one here, the E sound is called Hasra, which is almost like breaking pattern of thinking and behavior.
Yes,
Because literally it means breaking.
Oh, wow.
So I found that was inspiring to me to
Yeah.
connect both systems, as you said, and to see it's all inspired by one source, our creator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Within us, and we feel it. Yes.
Yeah, and it's breaking the neural pathways that have become habituated patterns so that we can, be more ourselves. Right?
Right.
Be more ourselves, who we truly are. This is what so I'm doing a 13-month practitioner course, which is Feminine Medicine Woman, and this is all part of, a lot of it, with the feminine work is really about us first getting to these places within us, right? Because then it's how do we do it for others? But it's not like a, weekend thing where you just learn, a technique.
It's not
It's
a
really,
It's a continuous work.
yeah, it's a transformation. Like we have to apply it, apply these tools, let them transform us, and then we become the carriers of that, right? Because we already have it within us, but we've been separated from this wisdom. Like this wisdom, we know what it is. It's a remembrance, as you were saying earlier. It's really coming into that wisdom within us and breaking those patterns that have separated us from it. And yeah, and so that's coming up in February 2nd, and it's the
How
Feminine
can
Medicine
people find
Woman.
out about that? Do you have a website?
I do. The website is The Feminine Path with dashes. So the-feminine-path.com. All dashes. And it's the Feminine Medicine.
Also.
Yeah. Feminine Medicine Woman, I know. Feminine Medicine Woman Practitioner course. Yeah, and they can also email me. There's an application. We're doing applications now. It's for women. It's limited for women, and it's for 13 months. And we do the voice medicine. We do the wisdom, mysteries, work with the with our ancestral mother line, clear the collective, trauma that's been in our line within ourselves, and yeah, so much more. So much more. I know we're running out of time, so
Yeah.
but thank you. It's been so wonderful. Yeah.
It has been fabulous to have you
Oh,
and with everything that you shared. I thank you so much. And maybe we'll have an opportunity to connect again and do even more.
absolutely. I'd love that. Thank you. Yeah, this,
Really appreciate your coming and talking about your experience and expertise with us. Really appreciate that.
thank you. I'm honored. Thank you so much. Many blessings.
Thank you. Blessings for you and for everyone listening. Just please check out Nura's website and see all the beautiful offerings that she has and get a even more tastes of what she's got going on. It's some incredible work and so needed, as she said, so needed in our world right now. Thank you all
Oh,
very much.